This is Rob Stone from Fox Sports.
Hey guys, this is Cole Liker.
Hi, I'm Neil Collins.
You are listening to the Unused Substitute.
The Unused Substitute.
And you're listening to the Unused Substitutes.
Get off the bench!
Hey there, Little Red Riding Hood, I got a problem and it's complicated. Going through text and I just can't ignore the signs. There now, it's so loud it hurts. Hear me, fella, hear me, how when the full moon
on the throw, ball's gonna bounce down, it's free in the box. Bicycle kick! Goal! Rowdies! What a play! What a shot! And it's 1-0 Rowdies!
Good evening, Rowdies fandom, near and far. Thank you for joining us. You're listening to the Unused Substitutes live on Radio St. Pete, part of the Beautiful Game Network, and sponsored by Roughneck Scarves and Golden Goal Press. This is your co-host, Steven, and on the other side of the internet, hopefully not hobbling around too bad as his knees flared up again this weekend, is Matt, the original founder of the podcast. How are you doing tonight, Matt?
I'm old and it sucks.
Well, at least nobody put you down like a horse, so that's good. You've got that going for you.
That's only because nobody else is in my house right now. I'm all alone until tomorrow or Friday afternoon. Otherwise, I'd be fertilizing the backyard involuntarily.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't have to run around and chase a bunch of little kids at the school yet. I mean, that's not coming for another 2 weeks.
Yeah, but I have a bat.
Yeah.
Makes it
Does
easier.
it have nails driven through it? Because I'm curious.
No comment.
Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. Obviously, we have a fun show tonight. We've got an interview with our amazing team captain, Sebastian Guenzatti. We've got a great game to wrap up from this past weekend where the Rowdies absolutely destroyed St. Louis 4-1. Obviously, we kind of changed up the pace a little bit here. I'm starting off the talk. So, Matt, I will actually hand this off to you tonight. Obviously, you didn't get a chance to actually go and enjoy the thunderstorm and the fun times that was, but from your home, where you got to watch the match in a nice, warm environment, what did you find? What did you take away from that 4-1 Rowdies thrashing of St. Louis?
That I was extremely right last week in declaring that St. Louis really is not a playoff quality team at this point, because a broken clock is right twice a day. No, I mean it was along the lines of what I expected, but I think I predicted 2-1 or 3-1 maybe. I didn't expect. I mean, we haven't seen a goal from Caleb Richards all year, so that was the surprise at the end. But for dealing with the delay and throwing the routine off and all these little things that could have turned this into somewhat of a trap game. And St. Louis, we know. I joke around. Actually, I'm not joking. I don't think they're a playoff team, but they are a good team. They're right on that edge, and they could end up in there if they can get the results going their way. But they're a good team, and right now they're a dangerous team because of the incredibly bad run of results they've had. Somehow, despite the fact that they've lost, they haven't won since April or May. They're getting features on their coach in The Athletic. If his last name was anything other than Pulis, he probably would have been fired by now. But that's neither here nor there. The Rowdies came out and just took care of business. I mean, you've got Sebastian getting 2 goals in about 3 minutes in the first half, kind of set the tone, and it felt like it's going to be one of those games where we've got a chance to put some in, and we did. It was a great game.
Yeah, it was fun. We had a gentleman from the USL show at the game this weekend.
Yeah,
Philip
I heard you
Grooms.
met Phil. Yeah, I met Phil down in Bradenton a couple years ago.
Okay.
During preseason, I was talking to him, I was supposed to meet up with him there, and I didn't get a chance to. But I told him to come, make sure you try and find you guys with the tailgate and everything.
Yeah, well, that wasn't going to happen considering, well, the heavens opened up. But no, I got a chance. He actually went up into the mob section and was able to track me down. It was funny because we talked before the game started, and he was like, what's your rough prediction for the night? And I'm thinking, we're going to score early. It's going to open up the game, and then all hell's going to break loose. Because I was thinking, again, my prediction from last week was a 2-2 game. And so I was thinking that, it was going to end up coming down to the very end or whatnot. But I told him, and Philip ended up tweeting this too about the prediction that I had that we would score early and that, it was going to really open up that match. And I got it wrong. I said 2-2, ended at 4-1. It is what it is. But, I did legitimately tell Phil that we were going to score first. So at least I got half a prediction right.
So are you now willing to concede? Because I think you said this last show that if the game started and it turned out to be just a romp by the Rowdies, that you would maybe finally be willing to admit that St. Louis might not be a playoff team.
I still believe that they're going to turn things around. I still believe that. There's too many games in hand. I think they'll get it done. I think they'll get it done, especially when you look at the rest of their scheduling. I'm still not concerned about them. Matt, you will try until your last breath to convince me.
Look, at my age, that might not be far off.
Okay, Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Oh. Speaking of, someone put this out there yesterday. I don't know if you saw it or if that's what you were referring to. So I went and clicked and read the article, and it has nothing to do with the Rowdies or soccer, but this is our show, and this is what we do. That there was she's gone through 3 fights with cancer. The second one was pancreatic cancer a couple years ago, and she said when she was diagnosed, some congressman was telling people with glee, she said that she'd be gone within 6 months and they could finally replace her. And she said, well, it's been about 15 years and that guy, whatever his name was, is dead and I'm still here.
Yes, actually, what's funny about that is that's exactly why I just used that as part of the joke, was that article that was written. Oh, because I caught the headline on that and I loved it. I thought that was hilarious. But yeah, no, look, this game, again, it was another stereotypical Rowdies performance, high pressure, but there were a couple of things that stood out to me as far as like my view of the game. And of course I rewatched it and kind of got a better feel for it that way as well. Our 3 defenders are, I can't even begin to just fathom like how amazing they are. We had the possession numbers between the 3 of them from what they were able to complete as far as passes. Now, granted, let's credit the midfield for dropping back and making themselves available to receive those. But, come on. Murad was 48 for 60 passing this weekend. Richards was 44 for 57 passing this weekend. Diakite was 38 for 47 passing. Those are some astronomically high numbers. Richards had 31 completed passes. If I did the count right on the website, he had 31 completed passes in the second half. That is unbelievable, especially when you factor in the fact that I think from what I understand, if I'm counting right, St. Louis I think only had like 75 pass attempts or something like that for like the whole half, or maybe completed passes or something like that. But like their passing numbers were absolutely atrocious in the first half. They could not get anything going. And it's kind of hilarious that like Richards had almost as many completed passes for the game as, St. Louis was doing for the first half. It was amazing, the statistics that kind of came out as far as some of those numbers were involved. But yeah, my big takeaway from that was how stout the defense was. I have one level of criticism as far as the game itself in terms of how we did play, right? Obviously, we had an interesting conundrum where, Tejada was missing, so we had M. Kasana show up, up top. And he did great. Don't get me wrong. I thought he did fine. He filled in nicely. I don't think he keeps that starting role. I think when Tejada comes back, I think Tejada will take it overall. Because like Lucky kind of disappeared for the second half. He only had he only dropped back to receive passes like 5 or 6 times the whole half. So it was like those are things that he's going to have to improve on and kind of make himself more visible, because for long stretches he didn't touch the ball, even in the first half. So I think that's going to be something that is going to be interesting to look at. But my big criticism for the match was Jan Ekra. Now, I know that's going to be kind of interesting, but I was comparing Jan Ekra's performance to St. Louis compared to Steinberger's performance against Ottawa. And when I took it away as far as how they were doing it, I remember one of the things that I mentioned in the as a tweet before the game started when they revealed the lineups was I thought they probably had Jan Ekra up there because he's a bigger body. I mean, again, he's taller. I think he's a bigger man than Steinberger is. And I got a feeling that was the reasoning there. But I think overall, I think Zach is not necessarily a faster player. I bet they're probably pretty on par for pace. But I think Zach is I think he's better defensively, and I think he's better on possession. And I think when we were looking at the numbers and some of what those numbers ended up coming out as, I mean, Ekra didn't have necessarily a bad game. I mean, he went 20 for 26 passing for the night, but he didn't really do much as far as like key passes that were developing shots. It wasn't something that I noticed, at least when I was rewatching that match and comparing it to, say, a Steinberger and some of his performances. I thought Zach overall has done better offensively. So that's going to be an interesting decision going forward to see if this is a trend that's going to continue or not. Because remember, up in Pittsburgh, we brought Steinberger in from the bench in that game. So I don't know how that's going to go. That's something that I'm going to be looking out for, is who's going to be taking over that offensive midfielder role. So we'll see how that plays out. You got something?
Well, I was just going to say, you hear a lot, and it reminds me of when Stu Campbell was the coach. A lot of coaches say, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to play, we're going to make other teams accommodate us. And Neil's never flat out said that, but you do get the idea with the way he plays certain players and guys who start at certain times or sub in at certain times, that he does kind of play some, I want to call it situational soccer, depending on the opponent. Like, he sets up what he thinks is going to work best for him, but he also makes some accommodations based on either exploiting what they seem to be weaknesses in the other team or trying to counter their strengths.
I believe that. And there's no doubt about it that, especially when we get into some of the soccer stuff, I mean, obviously matchups are an important thing. And that comes down to having a good scouting department. That comes down to having good tape available, which obviously that's a league-wide thing that we can watch, any game throughout the year on ESPN Plus. So anybody can come back and start looking at tape on other players and seeing those matchups and really kind of diving into the science behind the sport to see who's going to be that best matchup. And yeah, like I said, I tend to believe that there was something that they saw that they thought Ekra would be better for that particular matchup.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, they had to have seen something. I think overall, though, I prefer Steinberger in general, 9 times out of 10. But
Right.
we'll see how it plays out long term. I will say this: of the 4 goals, though, I thought the second goal with the cross that kind of gets. There's a shot that's deflected. Malik collects it on the right-hand side. He passes it into Kasana. The dribbling and the ball control that it took on the wet surface for Kasana to kind of pull away from his guy, pass the ball over to Seba, who takes a good touch on it himself, and it makes a quick shot.
Right.
Not the most powerful shot in the world, not the greatest placed shot in the world. He just took a shot from short distance on a dime, which is 90% of soccer right there. Like, you have to be able to do that. And I thought, to me, that was a great goal. Don't get me wrong. Leo's was fine. The first goal was fine. I mean, obviously, Richards, the big thing with Richards' goal was the pass that led to his. But I thought the second goal was the most skillful of the four, as far as build up and the type of play that you saw that created it. So I think for me that was kind of cool highlight for me. Do you have a man of the match for this? Who would you designate for your man of the match?
I've got a couple of ideas, but I want to come back to one more thing before I get to that, because you're talking about the second goal, and now I'm thinking about it in my head. Were all four of the goals, maybe Caleb's wasn't, were all four of the goals kind of coming diagonal across the box to the far post? The second one was...
Well, the first one was the chip in from the side. That was the header.
Yeah, the first one.
That was the first one. It was basically like a header on the goal line. Even even Gueezy was saying that he was practically Leo's goal. He just kind of ushered it along a little bit.
Are we calling him Young Gueezy now?
I mean, I'm okay with calling him Gueezy. It's okay with me.
It seemed like that was because I know at least the second and third ones were.
The second and third goal.
That was something they said, look, this is how we're going to set up our shot. This is where we're going to, it's something they saw in the keeper or how the keeper plays. They said, look, let's take shots this way and we think we'll be successful.
Yeah, I mean, three of the goals were definitely sort of crosses in a way, though I would say, I mean, obviously the third and the fourth goal were like identical. Their right side defense just completely disappeared on both of those plays. So, as far as that's concerned, I don't think I would classify the other two as being that sort of goal. Like the second goal, I think was definitely not like a cross type. I think that was just good dribbling in the box and good ball control in the box. So that was more of just like that was more of a right up the gut.
But I mean, as far as taking the shot, trying to go in at the far post from where they were. Although I guess really Sebo, once he makes that move, is kind of more center of the box when he takes a shot.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah. All right, so there's two choices. There's the obvious Sebastian Guenzatti, now 2 goals off the pace for Golden Boot. We haven't had a Golden Boot contender, I think, since Georgi Ristov was one of his first early seasons. With 2 goals and 1 assist right on the night. He had the assist on Caleb's goal at the end.
Yeah,
had the 2 goals early and then that. Or just because I love seeing a guy making his name known in lots of statistical categories, you've got Leo Fernandez getting the assist on the first goal, then a yellow card just before halftime, and then getting his own goal in the 79th minute. So not quite the Bobby Orr hat trick, but maybe pretty close in terms of soccer.
Yes, I would absolutely agree with that.
I'm going to go Guenzatti, but I want to make sure we give some consideration to Leo for this too.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Now, it's funny. My man of the match for this match, I'm going to go completely off the ball here, if you're ready for this. And I don't know if the audience is ready for this, because I'm going to throw a name out there that nobody's talked about yet to this point. And I think that he's honestly one of the biggest reasons why we had the game that we had. And I've done it before. My man of the match, again this week, is Poku.
I was almost going to say Sean Barry.
Yeah.
The way you set that up, I was...
Poku only missed 4 passes all night. He was 41 for 45 passing.
Goodness.
He had something like 6 or 8 clearances, a couple of defensive stops tackling wise. He had a couple of successful dribbles. I think at least 1 shot attempt. He absolutely dominated that midfield. And I think that was a huge reason why we were able to have the success that we did against St. Louis. Like I said, he absolutely dictated. Granted, he didn't have any of the official assists. He didn't score any goals or anything like that. So, I mean, obviously there are elements to this that kind of make it a bit of a controversial pick if you want to break it down. But I think, to me, that is what did it, especially with Ekra not being the most involved in the context of really creating a lot of play himself. I thought Poku dictated most of that match. He did more passing than Aduro and Ekra. Quite frankly, he actually had better passing numbers than Malik and Leo. I mean, he was like the guy passing the ball up the field. So I that's for me. That's my tip of the hat. That's who I go to. My secondary choice will end up being my "We Love You" for the night. So I'll save that for later.
All right, since we haven't had our mentions lit up by a particular group in a while, I want to throw this out there. I'm going to put you on the spot, and you can be the recipient of the tweets because they will come. I guarantee it. I know there's still some of them who are listening. Taking a look at the Eastern and Western Conference in MLS right now, Cincinnati by far is the worst team in MLS. Could we beat Cincinnati right now?
Oh, I think so. I think so, absolutely.
Because you're talking about the level that the guys like Poku and Diakite are playing at. Caleb Richards, who I think has proven that he's well above this level. I'm going to talk about him in a little bit. The goalkeeping we're getting from McCarthy, the way that the midfield is played, and the way the forwards have worked together.
I would say yes,
so.
And for those that don't follow MLS as closely as others do, Cincinnati's issue is, quite frankly, they don't really have a coach. They don't really have a system. Their players don't gel together right now at all. They are absolutely full out a mess.
Their chili sucks.
I mean, in 22 games this year, they've lost 15 of them, and they have a negative 30 goal differential on 22 games played. I would say this, if the Rowdies had to play them right now, we would win, mostly because their off-the-field stuff is such a mess that they can't figure out the talent that they have. So I would say that, yeah, we could probably beat them.
Are you looking at the regular MLS standings page right now? Is that where you were getting stats from?
No. Why?
Okay. Just how you got the stats that quick. Because I was going to say, if you look at the, just random note here, if you look at the MLS standings page, it starts out with points, and then right next to it, points per game.
Why do you think I'm so big on points per game? Is that people use it?
They went back in time and stole it from us.
Yeah, right. No, I would say this. Okay, so let's do an extension here to the thought of the Cincinnati talk. Could we beat, say, a Columbus, a Chicago, or an Orlando City starting 11? That might be pushing it. Because again, the difference in talent level is that big. I mean, there may be one or two players on the Rowdies that might be able to make it into an MLS roster right now, like a starting 11, but certainly not all 11. And certainly not our depth players. I mean, I love people like Juan Tejada, but Juan Tejada's probably not starting in any MLS team right now. He'd be depth play for MLS, and that's a starting striker. Like, I think if you were to start looking at like kind of the average MLS team, no, I don't think we're beating those teams. But like an epically bad Cincinnati dumpster fire, yeah, I think we could take them.
Well, and we're definitely beating Orlando.
I mean, just by default.
Yeah.
Just by default. They would ride on the wings of angels, which is the Ralph's Mob and Skyway Casuals, who would just support them onto a victory. And
plus, it would look like a International Champions Cup match where half the team doesn't want to play the game anyway, and they'd get themselves red carded in the first half.
International Champions Cup needs to go away, but that could be for a different discussion. That actually, we could, that segues into a fascinating conversation about whether there is value for the Rowdies to play a European opponent for a friendly match. With the trend of attendance and interest in the ICC going down for the last several years, is it still actually worth it? I know, like, even I've brought it up over the years that we've only ever done it once in a mid-season friendly. Is it ever worth the Rowdies' effort and time to try and schedule another one at some point?
So
I don't know.
As fast and furious as the discussion gets between you and me about St. Louis being a playoff team or not, that has been a frequent topic of conversation, like with me, Jake, and Dan over the years. So I want to do it, but let's talk about it off here first, and I'll tell you like some of the history in the conversation about it, and then we can plan from there, because definitely it's a good one to have. Plus, and I mentioned it to you. I mean, as the weeks go on, and we're a near lock for the playoffs. At this point, we're going to need to start adding some extra content, because talking about what Hartford's going to do this weekend when we've already locked up a top 4 spot is going to be kind of pointless. All right. Any other chat? Any other info about the game we want to go over?
The only thing that bothered me, and I don't know if you caught this, but I didn't find this out until after I got home and after I was rewatching the match on TV. Well, ESPN Plus. David Najem apparently picked up a knock, and he is kind of rehabbing a bit of an injury right now, which is fascinating because on our official injury report we got from the team, he wasn't on it.
No, it was
so
just it was just
I don't know if there was a bit of
Siage,
Schadenfreude
right?
going on there or not, but he was up in the broadcast booth, which, by the way, full credit to him and Felios and Davis. That was a fun segment. I think he was on for almost 10 minutes in that game or
because
something like that?
He was on right when Seba scored the first goal.
Yes.
Because it kind of he was in the middle of saying something and it happened, and he was like, I was kind of cracking up because
yes, and you could hear him clapping or something in the background.
Well, but at the very beginning, he was like, goal for Sebastian, okay, because he didn't want to lose his train of thought. It seemed like, and I was like, no, this is the point where you get to cheer in the press box. It's okay.
Exactly. No, I thought he sounded great, but I thought, like I said, it was funny. As soon as I saw him come up, and I think Drew mentioned the fact that he was like, we know you're coming back. You got a bit of a knock, and you're trying to rehab, and they started talking about that a little bit. And I'm like, wait a second. Our injury report that we got before the game on Thursday or Friday night, I'm like, wait a minute, his name wasn't on there. And I went back and double checked. Sure enough, it wasn't. So I don't know when he picked that up or where, or maybe it was just an accident that they forgot to type his name. Maybe it happened Saturday morning, and because we got that list off Friday night. I don't know. That was weird.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if if it shows up in this week's report, or if he's back and ready to go against his old club. The narrative.
Yes, the hashtag narrative.
All right, so we are keeping an eye on one other game going on between top 10 teams last week, Pittsburgh and North Carolina. Pittsburgh with a 1-0 win over North Carolina FC. A little bit of an upset. Pittsburgh's down at they're in 8th right now, and North Carolina's in 4th. So that was a good result for Pittsburgh. Big ones coming up this weekend: Nashville and Indy. Wouldn't mind seeing Nashville win that game. Put them within 8 points of us, but keep Indy back. And St. Louis versus Bethlehem, which isn't really a top 10 at all, but those are your 11 and 12 teams, and either one winning could jump into the top 10 based on how it's set up right now. So ones we're going to keep an eye on as well, since we'll have the whole weekend with the Rowdies playing on Friday. Your current points-based table, overall points, Rowdies are on top, 43 points. Regardless of what happens on Friday, the Rowdies will still be on top heading into next week. They are 5 points ahead of Red Bull 2. Have played equal number of games, are 5 points back. Indy is still 2 games in hand, but 6 points back. North Carolina FC in 4th, Nashville 5th, Ottawa Fury in 6th, Louisville 7th, Pittsburgh 8th, Charleston 9th, Charlotte still in 10th. Bethlehem, St. Louis right there behind, and then Birmingham, Loudoun, Memphis, which I think we're going to start renaming Memphis to Agent Allen 901 FC. Swope Park, Hartford, and Atlanta has taken over the basement. Atlanta United 2 not having a great season so far, which we'll come back to some of that in a second. The points per game table. Updated this. Ignore what the picture says in the notes. I actually updated it this afternoon. Rowdies are back on top, or still on top, averaging 2.15 a game. Indy 2.06, Red Bulls 2, this weekend's opponent 1.9, North Carolina 1.7, Ottawa and Nashville at 1.68, Pittsburgh at 1.61, Louisville City at 1.5, Charleston at 1.44, and St. Louis at 1.24. So we're still seeing kind of that 1.25 points is where you need to be in the top 10, even though St. Louis hasn't made that result work out in their overall points so far. Charlotte, Bethlehem, Loudoun, Birmingham, Memphis, Swope, Atlanta, and Hartford are the rest. the one real big difference is St. Louis in the playoff spots and Charlotte out in this point. But it looks like you can say your top 10 for your playoffs, plus you've got about 2 other teams in contention, I'd say, would be Bethlehem, and then on this table would be Charlotte. On the other one, it would be St. Louis. I think those are the 2 that maybe have a shot at sneaking in to a playoff spot. I don't see it happening for Loudoun, Birmingham, Memphis, Swope, Atlanta, or Hartford.
No question about it. Those teams further down are dead. Those are dead in the water.
Loudoun on a technicality because they've only played 16 games, but they'd have to start winning a bunch, and I don't see it happening. Yeah,
I don't see it happening either. Because again, and we're going to get into this. It's a 2-team basically, and so, and again, we're going to have a segment on this later in the show, but that team is basically dictated on what DC sends down to them for players. And if there's a lot of players that come down, then they play really, really well. Because guess what? There's only one New York Red Bulls. New York Red Bulls does something amazing, and that is that their depth players are amazing. And it's like the only team that can really say that. I mean, besides the occasional like LA Galaxy 2 or Portland Timbers 2, because obviously the West Coast is a whole different animal. But on the East Coast teams, I mean, there's been only one team that consistently can do this, and that's New York Red Bulls. And, so I don't see Loudoun doing it. I really don't give Bethlehem much of a chance.
No, and Bethlehem is always kind of the weird, quirky one because, I think they qualified for the playoffs last year, and that's the only time they've been in the playoffs since they've existed. But when their players go on to MLS level, like they're pretty decent quality reserve players up there.
Yeah, no, it's true, but there is a bit more of a disconnect. I don't know if it's because there's not much of a stable home there. I don't know. Actually, you know what? I just thought of something, and totally randomly off subject. Are we playing at Red Bull Stadium or are we playing at the affiliate stadium on Friday night? Do we know?
I want to say it's at the affiliate stadium. Let me check and see here real quick.
It just dawned on me that was a question worth asking.
Let's see what they say.
I literally just randomly popped in my head when I was talking about home grounds for Bethlehem. So sorry, audience, for this random break in the action.
Yep,
here.
Montclair State University Soccer Park. So it'll be at the not at RBA.
I think that actually kind of works in our favor maybe a little bit because I don't want to revisit New York Red Bull Stadium right now, especially after what happened last year.
A change of scenery would be nice at least.
I'm just saying. There's something to that little extra element. The other interesting thing about that, but we'll get into that. I don't believe Bethlehem has a chance. I don't. I mean, statistically, they're kind of in it, quote unquote, but I don't give them much credence at all right now.
Yeah, it's a very, very outside shot.
Charlotte's the only team with a chance. Which, by the way, I actually did go back and pull the tapes. I pulled the receipts, and you actually said you thought Loudoun was going to be the team to do it, and I said I was Charlotte.
Interesting.
So interesting indeed.
Interesting. I wonder, was that before or after the coaching changed? I don't even know.
Oh, I don't remember.
Probably before. Yeah, that's weird.
I didn't dive into it that deep.
Yeah, that's weird. I think just because of the number of games they have in hand over everybody. But even then, like it's, even if they won all of them, they would just be, bottom 4 of the top 10. So probably not something that's going to happen in all likelihood. All right, so moving on. Like we mentioned in the beginning of the show, we were without Juan Tejada this week. Was off playing for Panama in their 2 legs against El Salvador. Scored in the first one. Panama soccer Twitter all of a sudden became big Rowdies fans. If only there was an online website to purchase merchandise from. They probably could have sold a bunch of Tejada shirts. The first game finished 1-1. The second game I didn't get a chance to watch or kind of follow that one along online, but El Salvador won. Panama does not advance. I'm not going to lie and say that I'm not slightly happy about it because we get Tejada back and he didn't get injured or anything. You got to have some fun playing for the national team and got to score a goal too, so congratulations to Juan. Welcome back to here where the games really count. So we talked about this one a little bit. Let's dive in this one. There was an article last week, and I haven't had a chance to read the whole thing yet because I did not resubscribe to The Athletic to read it. But apparently there is a rumor or a plan or something in going on at USL to force all of the 2 teams, the B teams, down into League One next year. So some involuntary relegation. Some of the teams chose to do that this year. Richmond, Orlando City B. Trying to think who else. Wasn't there another one that went down? Oh, Rochester took the year off, and they're supposed to be coming back. And Penn FC took the year off, and they're supposed to be coming back. They're not really a B team. Neither is Rochester, so all that's kind of pointless. And there's some teams who are probably okay with it. The requirements for stadiums and ownership and stuff like that is a little bit more relaxed. But some teams probably. Did you get a chance to read the article at all, or were you just following along with the conversation online?
You think I've got the money for all these subscription services?
Hey, I only did it because someone threw out like a 60% off the first year, so it was like $20 for a year.
Yeah, that's what it is.
So this is kind of, and there's a lot of things to factor into this. Like, well, first off, should all the B teams, the 2 teams, be forced down?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely, thoroughly against that. Not only, there's 2 reasons for this, right? As far as reason why I would say no. One is financial. There's too much money involved with buying a franchise right now to get it just started. Then you're paying all these players. You're trying to develop a system. And you're going to interrupt that whole thing for what reason? Like, and it's not like the championship level is overinflated on teams right now. We're actually at a pretty good clip of teams. We could use them right now. We don't need to shrink the championship division as far as how to. I don't see the point. Now, granted, obviously there is some degree of issue in regards to the crowd size and things like that, but that those teams are drawing. But I think that'll come in time. I think that will be something that will develop. Again, you've got situations with Loudoun where, or Bethlehem, that they're trying to introduce a different brand name for the reserve club instead of just calling it, New York Red Bulls 2 or whatever.
Right.
But even New York Red Bulls 2 are developing a bit of a fan culture behind that team, as far as having people that legitimately do follow them. I don't see the point of forcing down all the 2 teams. It doesn't make sense to me, especially as a top-handed approach of we're just going to shunt you all aside and forcibly take you off. Because think about it. If all the 2 teams go down to USL 1 and play each other at League 1, isn't that just what the MLS Reserve League was all about 5 years ago, 6 years ago? Wasn't that the whole reason why they stopped doing that? Is because the competition and everything didn't make sense for developing players, so they wanted to go against independently run organizations. That was the whole reason why USL partnered with MLS in the first place. So why are we talking about this right now? It doesn't make any sense.
I mean, yeah. I mean, on one hand, though, you've got. I'm looking at it here, and as best I can tell, 7 of the 10 current League One teams are independent. North Texas, South Georgia, Lansing, Chattanooga Red Wolves, Tucson, Greenville, and Madison. You've got and Richmond. You've got Orlando City B. You've got TFC 2. So 8 out of them are there. So, on one hand, yeah, like you said, right now, I feel like this season we're at the right number of teams in both conferences. You've got a good 17 home, 17 away. You've got a good professional level league schedule. If you do this, you're taking out. Let's see. In the East, you'd be losing Red Bull 2. You'd lose Loudoun. You'd lose Swope. You'd lose Atlanta 2. So you got 4 teams coming out. And if you go on USL's website, there are not any expansion teams currently listed that you would consider to be in the East. Although I think Baltimore's a pretty safe bet to be coming in soon, and they're not listed on there. But still, you're dumping 4 teams for one. And, who knows? Next year you got to put St. Louis back in the West because that's just what you do to St. Louis every year. If you go to the Western Conference, though, then you've got... Hang on here 1 second. If you go into the West, then you're taking out Tacoma, which is Seattle's 2 team. Then you're going to lose LA Galaxy. Then you're going to lose Timbers 2. Then you're going to lose. I think those are the.
No, there's more. There's more. Real Monarchs.
Yeah, Monarchs.
Colorado Springs Switchbacks, and you could
But
make an argument that RGV
Switchbacks aren't a
Toros.
direct 2 team, are they?
Colorado Springs.
They're not like owned by Colorado Rapids. They might have like
I think there's a loan agreement.
Partnership. Yeah, a loan agreement, but it's not a straight 2 team. And then
you got the RGV Toros.
Then
which
you've
of
got
course is,
RGV.
They're all Houston players, but
yeah, it's Houston players and Houston coaches, but the team's owned and operated independently.
Yeah. And
I think there was another team that was going to be either taking on that model or coming in with that model. So yeah, that's what 4 or 5 teams there, and you have 2 California teams coming in, East Bay and San Diego at some point. You still have to account for you're probably going to lose Sacramento and possibly St. Louis to MLS during expansion.
Yeah.
I know they've got eyes and targets other cities to be coming along as well too. I've been hearing rumors about some places, but forcing everyone down next year when you don't have teams ready to come in is a bit of a mess. And then, like you said, like there are some teams who are probably okay with this, like moving the teams down. The administration, the overhead, everything else is lessened. But there's some teams. And you've got 1 or 2 in each conference. New York Red Bull has always been a strong, competitive team, regardless of the nature of their club. And then over in the West right now, you've got Timbers 2 are in 7th place. I think Sounders 2.
Well, the big one in the Western Conference has been Real Monarchs.
And the Monarchs, yeah. And then Swope, when Swope was over there, Swope got to the finals before.
Yep. Yeah, Real Monarchs have been like one of the best teams for several years now in the Western Conference, and they're a 2 team.
Like there's teams that value putting these players into these kind of competitive situations. And sure, if they lose, but they're getting a chance to develop, they're getting a chance to play against stronger competition so that those players are ready to move on and step into first team spots when it's available. USL doesn't want to be seen as completely being a developmental league for USL, but if those teams are doing this and they're remaining competitive, like it's kind of a disservice to everyone else to take those teams out of there, in my opinion.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me. And here's the thing too, right? There was a big discussion too that some folks were having on Twitter, and like I said, I'm not on Reddit, so I'm not sure what was going on there, but I'm sure that was a fire. One of the aspects to this thing that was interesting too was if you force all of those teams down, what do you do about the expansion fees that they paid? Now, here was one thing, and this has been something that I've always said about promotion relegation. A lot of folks were saying, well, maybe we do promotion relegation and those teams get dropped down over time if they can't, keep the level of play up. And I get that. That perspective's fine. There has to be money that changes hands, though. Like even with Premier League, when you get promoted up in a division, you get rewarded for that monetarily.
Right.
But at the same time, if you go down a division, you're given parachute payments.
For it's up to 3 years, isn't it?
Yeah. And they're not like insignificant sums of money. It gives you quite a good monetary advantage over the other teams that you're going into the same division of to help you kind of bridge that gap. And gives you a bit of a competitive advantage, off the field to try and get back into that division that you just dropped out of. If you're going to do promotion relegation in the United States and make it work at any level, because of the franchise fee issue, there has to be a way to like, if you're going to tell New York Red Bulls they're going to have to play in USL League One, you better be paying them to do it.
Yeah, I mean, this seems like if you're going, and they've hinted at it, if they're ever going to implement some type of promotion relegation system, this seems to be the time to do it. Then you dump the teams that are not as competitive to an area where they are, but then you've got to figure out what's that incentive to go back up, what's that cushion to kind of blanket going down, because eventually it won't just be the 2 teams or the B teams going down, it'll be Hartford's and Memphis's and Birmingham's, and there's got to be some kind of system in place for that. I think the answer to this is just to figure out what that is, but that seems to be kind of at this point the best overall way to address it, if you can figure out that part.
And there's another factor to this too, and that is, how do you compensate for the fact that, let's just say Madison wins the USL League One? Okay, do you just give them an automatic promotion? Well, what about the franchise fee problem? Because they only paid a couple $100,000 to get a League One team started,
right?
But like a franchise fee in USL Championship is like a couple million. So you're going to have to force them to pay up. Like, and that's always been my thing too, is that you can have promotion relegation, but you have to be able to find a way to reward teams for moving down financially to help compensate the franchise fee that they've already paid. But those teams don't move down if there's not a team in the lower division that's able to pay up to join the next division higher.
Right, and you've got to make sure those teams...
Hartford. So like Hartford, if they finish in last place in USL overall, they don't get automatically relegated unless, say, a Madison wins the USL League One and can then pay to move up. And that's what I've always believed is the solution. Because technically, like in my mind, U.S. Soccer could almost do that tomorrow at a national level and say, okay, because this was always my argument back when we were in NASL, was like, you can't tell Chicago Fire that they have to play a division down after the millions of dollars they've spent. Like, if the Cosmos win, the NASL, of course, we were talking about that in 2013 and 14 and however many they won while they were here and we were all playing together. For me, I'm okay with promoting them into MLS, assuming they can cover the like $100 million franchise fee and the stadium requirements and everything else. Otherwise, sorry, you don't move up.
So that you hit on one of the things I was going to mention next is supposedly part of the reason for this is because a lot of these 2 teams, B teams, don't meet all of the Division II standards, especially when it comes to stadiums. I mean, Bethlehem's had that problem. That's why they left where they were playing, because there's no lighting on the field. You've got to make sure these teams that are in the next division down have the requirements to where they step up. Do they have the stadium? Like, South Georgia Tomenta plays at, I believe, the soccer stadium at Georgia Southern University's campus. And I've been to Georgia Southern University's campus, and I'm pretty sure the soccer stadium does not meet Division II standards. Madison, they're way down in like 8th place right now. They might. I'm not sure what their overall, what the capacity. I think it's around 5,000, which is the minimum for what you need. But they did something this week that I thought might be, maybe kind of a hint at this thing, because they did like a little Twitter poll that was, what's the highest level you could see Madison playing at? And it was League One, Championship. They threw MLS in there, but I think they're kind of hinting at maybe some kind of future system being in place. And then also, and we talked about, you've got expansion teams coming in California. You've got one heavily rumored to be coming into Baltimore. That's a different thing than you encounter overseas with these established leagues and these 100-year-old clubs. Like you mentioned, Hartford. Hartford's a brand new team. Should they be subject to relegation in their first year? Do you give them like a 2 or 3 season pass to figure out what they're doing before they are in danger of this stuff? Do you there's kind of like that Mexican system or the South American system where they were, I think it was Brazil was doing it, where they, it was an average of your points for like 3 seasons. So like one
Mexico
bad
does
season,
that.
they do that too. Yeah, one bad season wouldn't kill you, but several would. But then I think you only needed one good season to get back up. I don't remember.
Well, I mean, obviously,
So that's what
Mexico's
happened
weird
with River Plate, wasn't it?
Say what?
That was what happened with River Plate.
Something like that. But of course, the other big thing is the fact that, like, I don't know, Mexico gets weird about relegation because they're like trying not to relegate teams, and so you can like buy a franchise, and I don't know, it's weird. But yeah, no, in general though, the principle is ideally without the monetary factor involved, it's an average of like 3 years of performance. And so you only get relegated if you've sucked for multiple years in a row. So, and I actually like that. I think that's actually a pretty cool idea in general. I think it's unique. If it wasn't for all the crazy financial stuff that goes along with it, I think that system's actually better than a one and done system.
Yeah, I mean,
it allows you to stay and build to that level.
It does protect the big clubs to some extent, that, you know, one terrible season for whatever reason doesn't kill you, and smaller clubs might look at that as something that's you know, keeping them from advancing. But yeah, you know, it takes into account the business realities of these leagues as well. Yes.
Yeah. Now, I mean, one thing that I'll address too is that when it comes to like the stadium requirements, the infrastructure requirements, this also raises up an interesting point of if you have to meet certain regulations, I guess, to qualify for moving up from, say, third division to second, and then, of course, subsequently from second to first, if we ever get to that point one day, I'm okay with saying you can't move up into this level because your stadium's not big enough. Do you want to know why I'm okay with that? Because it encourages more investment in the game.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. I'm okay every time a billionaire is willing to spend a few $100 million on upgrading a soccer facility to a higher level of standard. I'm okay with that. I'm never going to tell somebody, no, I don't think that's a good idea. No, that's how you raise the profile of soccer in this, is getting people to investing money. And that's how you do it. If you want Madison to get into MLS, then you're going to have to find yourself the business partnership to make that happen and get the results on the field. And I'm okay with forcing teams to do both of those. To me, that's how it works. That's how it happens. Because it means you can't get like, you know, for your example here, you can't get like a Tormenta to go up to MLS in an open pyramid thing, because that doesn't make sense. Like, it doesn't make sense. Those business realities don't make sense. So I like the fact that you have to meet certain requirements, as well as the monetary issues, things of that nature, to be eligible for promotion in the first place. Otherwise, there's no relegation in those divisions at all. And I'm okay with that, because it also means that it protects those teams from, you know, if there's nobody in the second division that's capable of moving up to first, well, then you're kind of safe. But if there's a team down there that's really starting to pick up financial steam, well, then, yeah, you've got something more to play for. And guess what? If you get relegated, it's your own fault. So I don't know. That's my perspective on it. I think overall it's a bad idea for USL to start talking now about forcing teams to go down. I don't think there's, honestly speaking, I don't know of a single good argument for that. I don't see where that makes sense in any degree of the spectrum. I don't see where that decision makes any sense.
No, and especially, I think there are teams who would do it willingly, like Atlanta United too. Like I don't get the impression that they are really that bothered that they're the bottom of the table. You know, it seems like they're using it less as a place to necessarily develop players for first team as a place to, like, you know, Andrew Carlton got sent down to Atlanta United 2 from Atlanta United because he was, you know, late for practices or meetings, and the coach wanted him to learn how to be a professional. It wasn't about developing his game. It was about living and kind of learning and playing this minor league life to understand and maybe appreciate the professional life. So there's teams that might be willing to do this voluntarily.
Yeah, but you know something though, those teams would have done that already. If they knew that, like if Atlanta knew that League One was something that might have been happening in the near future, they may have held out a year or two to just launch in that league. But the fact is that they paid millions of dollars to buy the franchise fee to operate a championship level club. So I think that I honestly, I don't know if I can agree with that idea that there are teams willing to drop down a division. Not when they've spent 3, 4, 5, I've heard up to $7 million for joining USL Championship. I don't see anybody that's a 2-team right now in the championship being okay with dropping down right now. Because to get there, you had to have shelled out millions of dollars just to get started. I don't think there's anybody that would be happy with that.
Maybe. I mean, there were at least 2 teams that did. Orlando and Toronto FC too. Maybe Toronto paid in Canadian dollars for the exchange rate wasn't that as much.
Well, Orlando, didn't they take a year off before they relaunched in USL League One?
Yeah, like they just
but
played
that's
like
the thing though, is that they waited a year. They waited a year for that jump to happen because they knew it was something happening, and that's part of the thing is that, like, if Atlanta would have known that.
I wonder, or I almost bet that they didn't have to pay a League One fee.
Yeah, and that's part of it. So I don't know.
And like
It's
Toronto
definitely-
FC too had to. I mean, they were playing out behind a middle school from what it looked like on TV. So there was no stadium situation coming up that was going to be that was going to solve their problems.
Yeah, I would have to hear more from Edwards on like the reasoning and how it would make sense and why it would make sense. He would have to pose some really, really convincing argument. Because even, like I said, even from a Rowdies perspective directly, I don't see why you would want to reduce this 18-team conference that we're playing in right now.
Unless they expected to have teams. And, there's seems to be another round of shakeups getting ready to go on. And maybe they were expecting to bring some teams in directly and balance it out at least.
Maybe. But I love the 18 teams, the 17 teams that we play against right now. I'm not saying this just because we're in first place. I'm saying this because I like how this is set up right now. And compared to 2011, when we only had 8 teams in second division.
Mm-hmm.
And we played the same 7 teams 4 times during the year.
Right.
To be in the position that we're in right now with 17 opponents, I couldn't be happier.
No, like it has a legitimate, like, stable feel to it finally.
And then there's like this excitement of the fact that the championship is against a team that you haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
Like that you're not going to be, I mean, obviously technically we could play Oklahoma City by chance, but I mean, you understand like the idea that I love USL the way it's set up right now in the context that it's much better than 2011 NASL. I don't know why you'd want to disrupt the rhythm that you've got going right now, but I don't know. That's all I got to say about it.
And then still remember somewhere in the back of their minds, they want to do kind of a League Cup kind of thing between the 3 divisions. I'm
okay with that.
Yeah.
Okay with that because most teams get knocked out in the Open Cup in like 1 or 2 games.
Right.
So you're not adding a lot of games to that schedule. So I'm okay with an interleague cup where we're playing against League One teams and things like that. I'm not really opposed to that. I think that's kind of a cool idea.
We got to call it the Peter Wilt Cup because I think he's established teams in all 3 of the divisions.
Yeah. Yeah, that's got some grounding in it.
It's full of whatever that weird beer.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm
not
not the biggest Peter Wilt fan, so don't get me wrong here. But I mean, it technically could work. I suppose.
Be a name for the cup at least. All right, so we'll keep an eye on this, and it will likely be an ongoing story before we have some kind of resolution, and we'll talk about our feelings about all of it. But going back to the Rowdies, we mentioned earlier Sebastian Guenzatti and his nice performance this week, 2 goals and an assist, made the team of the week. Well, our very own Jake sat down with him a little bit earlier today for about 10 minutes, talked about his take on the season so far. and also what he's thinking, going ahead into this weekend's match with New York Red Bulls too. So he'll talk about that, and then we'll preview them a little bit, and then we'll be all set. So let me get this queued up, and let's hear from Seba.
Hey, Seba.
Hey, how are you?
Great, man. How you doing?
Everything good, and you?
Great. Yeah, happy to talk to you today.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, first off, congrats on the result this past weekend. That was a really great one for you guys against a really tough St. Louis opponent.
Yeah, definitely it was. St. Louis is a very good team. They showed, against us at their house, and I think the team was ready during the week. We could tell we were on it. Our passing, our fitness, everything. Everybody was feeling good, and it showed on the field on Saturday night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you guys also had that long weather delay, but it didn't seem like it impacted you guys at all. I'm just curious, what are you guys doing in the locker room while you're waiting out that delay like that? When you're like, during the day you're pumped, you're ready to go. You got your mind, okay, 7:30, we're going 7:30. You get to the stadium, okay, we're an hour later now. What do you guys do in the locker room just to stay focused?
No, we did. We waited maybe half more hour until we got a certain time, and then we did the normal things. Everybody was focused since the beginning, like we were gonna play at 7:30, and when they said we weren't, we took kind of like a little break, and then we were back at it. But nothing different than any other game. I think we did a good job, in the locker room, staying on their toes and being ready. So if the game was still on, and we knew it was kind of going to be on because, over here in St. Pete, we're kind of used to that weather. It comes in and out, and it happens, but the team was, really professional about it, and the grounds crew did a great job on the field also.
Yeah, it looked like it was in great condition, considering the weather. So the night was also a great night for you individually. I mean, with the goals and that great assist to Caleb, and you're having a great overall year so far. One of your most productive as a professional, I think. What's working so well for you this year, you think?
I think I haven't played forward and since I started my career. I think only in Uruguay, and when I came to the U.S., I was more like a winger. And now I find my position. I think I'm a forward, and I kind of always ask that, to give me a chance forward. And Neil gave me so much confidence that it's hard not to, have fun on the field when the weekend comes. And with my teammates, I have amazing teammates that also give you the confidence. And the way we practice so hard that when it comes to the games, it's so natural for us to give everything and just be on top of the ball and our passing rate. So I think it all comes down to our training and what the coaching staff do and everybody around the club.
What does it mean to get that confidence shown and put in you from Neil like that? I mean, you get the captain's armband, you get put in a new really focal point position as a forward up top. I mean, what's it mean to get that confidence from the coach like that? And what's it mean?
No, it means a lot. As a forward, you need that confidence. Especially when things aren't going your way. You always got to stay positive, and just confidence is more than 50% of what you are on the field. Confidence is everything on the field, and also, like I told you, the training has been amazing and all that. So all we need to put on the field from the players is the confidence, because everything else is there. It's automatic. We train so hard, like I said, and I wish everybody had that confidence, which I think most of the team does. Some guys haven't gotten really the chance yet to play, but I think once they start finding that confidence, it's totally different. You play another game, is so much easier. Everything opens up for you.
Yeah. You mentioned your teammates. Obviously, you can't have a season like you're having without contributions from your teammates as well. I mean, we know you have the chemistry with Leo from your time in New York and your time there in Tampa Bay too, and he's obviously having a great season too. And then you get Lucky coming in last month, and it seems like his transition has been seamless. Has it been like when he showed up? It's like, oh, it's like just like you guys know each other already. It's just like so perfect, and you guys had that chemistry right away.
Yeah, with Leo, since last year, I think we always had that chemistry. I didn't have the season that I had this year for different circumstances, but Leo is an amazing player, and I could read his movements, he could read mine wherever the ball goes. So we always try to stick with each other and always play with each other. And Lucky, since he came, he did an amazing job. First game he assisted, then he scored, and now last game also another assist for me. And he's been amazing. He's a player that you don't have to tell him to work hard or to make extra runs. He does them to open up the space. So, and that's also why I'm getting the goals. My teammates are opening up the space for me, and trying to find good spots to create spaces for another player. So I think that's very important. We're not selfish, and we work for each other.
Mm-hmm. So you're in like the thick of this USL Golden Boot race too now. Only just a couple of goals back. I know you're a team guy. You're obviously focused on results first. But are you like paying attention to that kind of thing, the Golden Boot race, just to see where you are, and is it like something that gives you a little extra motivation?
I'm not too worried about that. If I get it, I get it. If I don't, I don't. What I want mainly is the championship and make my team, celebrate. That's what's going to stick for the rest of my career for me, and in my life, because, like we did in my other teams, in the Cosmos, we won championships, and nobody could take that away from you. And those are things that the team will remember.
Yeah, right. You've been a part of a couple of championship teams with the Cosmos. I mean, so from your experience with the Cosmos, looking back on that, do you see a lot of potential for this year's Rowdy squad and championship potential? I mean, and when you look at the way things are going this year and the way things shape up, obviously there's a lot more season to go. But do you see a lot of potential in the Rowdies this year?
Oh yeah, definitely. I don't even have to say. We proved it on the field, and everybody has seen how hard we work and how. We're talking with Lucky. Every goal we celebrate like it's a final, and that's how it should be. I love the passion that this team has, and the people in St. Peter are loving that too. So, for us, if we know we're doing our job when the people are behind us and cheering for us, and hopefully we give them that championship that they've been waiting for a long time, and also something for us to celebrate. And that's how also you build relationships with people for the rest of your life. Like like I did with Lucky, with Leo, and I'm sure this Rowdies this Rowdy team is also going to do that. There's the character from this team is amazing, and the mentality of every single one of us is on top. So I think from here, I think we'll build good relationships for the future.
Mm-hmm. So you've got a big one coming up this week in New York. You guys create a little bit of cushion for you at the top of the table, but New York is pushing hard to catch you guys. So what's it going to take to get a good result here in New York, where the Rowdies haven't always had the best of luck, and New York is always so tough to beat on home turf? What's it going to take?
Yeah, no, I mean, the last few years with the Rowdies, we haven't had much luck away anywhere, really. And this year, I think we kind of sorted out, and I think, Red Bull is a really tough team. They always are. Their style is always, we could tell that, they have a style of play. They know what they're playing. And we just got to match their intensity. I think they're a really intense team, always running, going forward. And I think if we do everything we did, the last few games, and even, try to play better than that, it's going to be a good game, because, we know they're going to come out with everything. and try to beat us. So, to stay on top, we just got to do the things we're doing and even work harder and better, do the things better.
Right, yeah, definitely. All right, Seba, well, I'm looking forward to the match this week, and best luck out there, and thanks for taking time to talk to me today.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. That's my pleasure.
Thank you, Seba. Thank you, Jake, sitting down with the captain. Found out about that one happening, I think, last night, yesterday afternoon. Was very cool. Nice to have him on there. He also talked to some other members of the coaching and playing staff, but that will be in the bench coming up this weekend. Should be out on Saturday, I believe. Stephen, any thoughts on the interview?
I think that's interesting. I'm happy that he's kind of ignoring the golden boot thing. I think that's important, that the perspective is the team. He's been around a lot of clubs that have won some championships, right? So he has the perspective of being able to come out and say, the individual accolade is cool, but it's not important to me. I want the big trophy. He's done it before, right? I'm pretty sure he won a trophy with New York while he was there, so at least one. So I think that's cool because it also keeps it grounded and keeps good chemistry within the locker room, that there's nobody that's like, obviously it's cool that your team captain is in that golden boot race, but so he's already the voted on leader of the team as such, but or obviously not voted on, but it's not football, but American football, but it's coach assigned. But I think it's really cool that he's willing to say that it's not that important to me. I don't really care, whether he gets it or Asante gets it or whoever. Like, he's like, I don't care. It isn't about me. I'm here for the fans, for St. Pete, and that's the cool part. I love it.
Yeah, deep down inside, he might really want to win it, but he's never going to admit to that in public because what do we care more about? We care more about the team winning a trophy than players getting individual awards, although they are nice as well.
Plus, right. I'm sure the financial incentive is better for a championship winner than a Golden Boot winner, so I'm sure there's probably some of that involved too.
Yeah, I'm sure. All right, so he talked in there about playing Red Bull, and especially Red Bull away has not been the happiest of destinations for the Rowdies in recent years. So let's take a look at them real quick, and then we'll wrap up for tonight. Since playing the Rowdies earlier in the season, Red Bulls are 5-2-3, 5 wins, 2 losses, and 3 draws. They are 8-2-2 at home on the year, 2-0-3 in their last 5. Second in traditional table, third in points per goals. Their leading goal scorer is Tom Barlow with 10. He's actually Sebastian's second in Golden Boot standings. Barlow is in 10th. Jared Stroud is their leading scorer with 6. He also has 47 shots and created 57 chances. So Barlow, who you just silently noted, has signed with MLS. Maybe wipes out one guy to keep an eye on, but Stroud seems to be a very important guy to keep an eye on as well. Goalkeeping, they've kept 4 clean sheets on the season, 2 each for their goalkeepers who have split the games. They are conceding 1.3 goals a game. So this is where it's going to be an interesting matchup because New York concedes goals. They've scored 13 more than we have. They've given up 13 more than we have as well too. Both teams are equal in their goal difference with a positive 21. Despite Red Bulls having lost 3 or 4 more games than the Rowdies have. They keep about 55% possession. They have scored 7 goals from outside the box, so you've got to keep an eye on them from out there as well too. Jean-Christophe Kofi, and I probably mangled that, is out due to yellow card accumulation, and Diakite still 1 card away from a suspension as well. What else have you noticed about this Red Bulls team that the Rowdies are going to have to account for this weekend?
Well, here's the thing, right? It's the thing that I harp on with the most with them is that that's probably the most athletic team in the league outside of probably ourselves. And it's funny. the USL podcast right now for Steal Some Time, their prediction for this game was that it was going to either be a crazy high scoring game or it was going to be like a 0-0 type game. And I don't see the latter happening at all. I think what's going to be interesting about this is going to be a little bit more about how the Rowdies approach this game rather than the Red Bulls, because we all know that the Red Bulls are going to play a high press, high pressure game. That's what they do. That's what Wolniak has always done as a coach. It doesn't even matter who's playing for the team necessarily in 1 week or next. I mean, the MLS team plays the next day in New York. So I don't know how much that'll factor in. It obviously is going to impact how many players come down. So we're not going to be playing against like an all MLS lineup. So that's going to work in our favor a little bit. But if you remember the last time that we played them earlier in the season, we basically said, screw possession. Like every time we had the ball, we basically just booted it up the field. And I think the biggest passing sequence we had on the night was one passing sequence of like 5 passes. And like everything else was 3 or less for the whole night. I think it wouldn't surprise me if you see a lot more of that again, because I think that Neil's going to have our guys basically treat this as a playoff match. Okay, we're going to do exactly how we did it before. We're going to play up to their level of pressure, and it's going to be balls to the walls all the way down the line. And I think what's going to make that interesting, too, is the perspective shift that we've had with the Rowdies since the start of the season. Something that we talked about was that Neil mentioned is that there was an approach to the game early in the season, because there was a comment about why we've given up so many goals lately and we haven't had clean sheets, quote unquote. The big thing about that is the fact that there was a change in perspective where earlier in the season, the forwards were dropping back deeper in the field to help on defense. And as the results have continued to kind of go our way, they've gotten more confidence in themselves to stay up forward. And as a result, like, we've given up a few more chances, a few more goals that we kind of weren't giving up earlier in the season. Obviously, playing Red Bulls earlier in the season now compared to how the Rowdies are playing, that perspective shift this is probably going to be I'm going to say a tight game overall. I don't think it's going to be a barnstormer. I don't think it's going to end up being a 0-0. I mean, certainly Red Bulls defense hasn't been all that stellar this year. So I think that's where I look at this game and some of the factors that I see involved for this weekend.
All right. Prediction time.
I'm going to go
said
mild.
It's not going to be 0-0.
I'm going to go mild. I'm actually going to say 1-1. I don't think it'll be I don't think for a fact that there's going to be a shutout. I don't think so at all. I know we beat them 2-0 earlier this year. I don't think there's a shutout this week or 2 nights from now. But I say 1-1 because I think both teams are going to be just so high press against each other, and they have the athletes to kind of stall us out. So I'm thinking 1-1.
So I'm going along similar lines, but I'm going to go with 2-2.
Okay.
There's going to be some kind of tactical tweak from Neil Collins that we're going to see that's like, oh, that's a new twist than what we've seen this year, and I think that's going to it's going to end up going to a 2-2 draw. It might be some unfamiliarity with whatever the twist is that leads to an early goal, maybe on a defensive lapse, but I think it also in the end turns around and gets a goal later on and balances out.
Do you want to know what I think that twist might be?
What?
I think you see Sean Barry start this weekend.
You know, there's a reason why I said earlier on that when you started talking about your man of the match, Sean Barry, that I was saying you might throw Sean Barry out there. He has looked great in the minutes he's played since he's come back, and to play that well. You know, he had an assist on Saturday night. To play as well as he had after the time off that he's had. It would not shock me if we see him with some significant time this weekend.
Get a big body in there. He's got the pace. If we need to replace him with Malik later in the half or whatnot, I think it makes sense. I honestly, if you see a tweak, that might be it.
Yeah, I could see that. I really would not be surprised if Shummer. All right, so who scores the goal?
I'm going to go with Seba. I think Gueezy scores the goal this weekend for us.
Okay. I'll say assisted by Tejada.
Like, oh, that's fine.
Yeah. There's that quote. I think it was from an English manager who says, soccer's a game where for 90 minutes, 20-something players run around and then the Germans win. I kind of modified it this season to soccer's a game where players run around for 90 minutes and Guenzatti gets a goal. Like, it just seems to happen, which I'm good with. So we'll go with that. All right, so let's wrap this up. Our We Love Yous, who do you got?
My We Love
I
You
got
is going to
multiple
go,
this week,
and I've done it before. I'm going with the grounds crew for the Tampa Bay Rowdies. Every one of those gentlemen, you guys are amazing. The amount of work that you put in, the fact that you guys had. Obviously, you guys had those tarps out just in case, long before those storms were ever coming. And as a result, that good premonition on your part, as it were, good planning involved. But the ability to get it up and running so quickly after the rainstorm ended, we were on it as far as getting that field up to speed and ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
Full shout out, we love you for making that a great night overall.
I'm going to echo that one as well too. They also got a shout out on the Steal Some Time podcast that we mentioned earlier for having the field in the shape it was in, considering the weather conditions. Also, shout out to Juan Tejada for making a great first impression on the Panamanian fans, and to my former partner in crime, Dan, for making it to another birthday. Today is the day. So happy birthday to Dan as well. Hope you enjoyed the Guenzatti interview. Speaking, we were talking about all these different, USL like League Cup and stuff. Did you watch the Leagues Cup last night?
Okay, I can't even begin to tell you how much I hate Leagues Cup.
Like, the name's just bad enough, but
the name is bad enough. The reasons why it exists are bad enough. I hate everything to do with it.
Did you see the LA and Tijuana game?
No.
All right, so I didn't watch the whole thing. I saw some clips of it later on, and I thought about this because listening to the Guenzatti interview, I kept thinking about I can't remember who it was, but there was an announcer who kept calling him Gwinetti one time, who just couldn't get the word out of his mouth. But last night Galaxy are playing Tijuana. And one of the Galaxy's players had gotten a yellow card early in the game and then got another one kind of late. And the referee seemed to have forgotten that he had given the first yellow. So
I did see that.
He didn't get the red out. So, and the guy's kind of like, and it was on a set piece. They're setting up for it. So he's kind of like trying to like duck and hide behind some of the players.
Wall. It was so great.
And Taylor Twellman's trying to do some commentary about this. And he has never been to Tijuana. I'll just say that. Because if you had, you wouldn't call it Tijuana. Repeatedly. You've got to see the video clip because he's just like the Tijuana coaches and the Tijuana players. It was awful.
Yeah, it's bad.
Which means it was, pretty standard as far as Taylor Twellman on the microphone. But it was bad. All right, so shout out to all you people that we just named. Thank you to Wolfface, to Radio St. Pete, to the Shamrock Pub, just because we love them for helping set up that bus to bring all the Skyway guys there last weekend. Thank you to you guys to listening and continuing to listen and continuing to share, subscribe, rate, and review. If you'd like to support the show on an ongoing basis, you can go to Patreon, patreon.com/unusedSubsPod. Thanks again to our sponsors, Roughneck Scarves, the official scarf supplier of MLS, USL, and US Soccer. You can get custom scarves for your group or team at roughneckscarves.com. No home game this weekend, not for a little while, but they do play Friday night. We'll be online talking about it, I guess, then and in between and whenever else. We'll talk to you guys sometime next week. I'm 95% sure I'm going to the MLS All-Star game, which is next Wednesday night. So we'll have to account for that, and then not exactly sure when I'll be returning home, but we'll have to be soon because I have to go back to work the week after that. All right, Stephen, thank you for taking time this evening to talk some Rowdy soccer with me.
Absolutely. And of course, it's always my obligation to remind everybody that Mexican soccer, Liga MX, is in full flow. And of course, my club León, Safiera es un orgullo, has won their first game 3-1 this past weekend, and then play the massive game against Club León this weekend. So, go boys in green.
Still a big Tawana fan here myself.
Yeah.
All right, Stephen, I'll talk to you soon. Everyone else, I'll talk to you guys soon too. Good night, and thanks for listening. See ya.
Go Rowdies.